Hello and welcome once again to Boomer 11. Today we're going to be talking the football side of things, even though I'm wearing a Chennai jersey. But I do have to say, I do have to start by introducing a special guest here today. We have Antriksh with us. Antriksh, welcome to the stream.
Thank you so much, Jaren. It's a pleasure to be here. Yeah.
Thank you so much for joining us as well. And then again, our old friend Abel is also with us. Abel, double happiness, I suppose, with the fact that you guys just got into Champions League final, and now you're also the kings of England once again. Something that probably is a bottle job of the decade at least.
I mean, pretty ecstatic at this point of stage. I mean, we have scheduled the live at the right point, just the Premier
Yeah,
League win, and because Arsenal, I feel bad for them. I genuinely wanted them to win. Not kidding. As a City fan, I genuinely wanted them to win because I didn't want this Premier League to be one-sided. Like that's one thing. I know it's a hat trick and whatever and all, but I really wanted them to win because it doesn't look good on Premier League. I support good football, guys. People might be talking about how I want to be ruthless and stuff, but then come on, you want some stories like this. And Arsenal was doing a phenomenal job. I like Arteta's style of football as well. But then at this point, they have nobody else to blame than themselves. So I'm pretty ecstatic right now.
what about you, Antriksh? Would you rather have had an Arsenal win the Premier League or a Manchester City? Tough one for you, I'm assuming.
It is tough one, but the circumstances which we're in right now, not really. And I'm surprised. See, Abel is soft. Like he's not in the habit of winning trophies as of yet. He's soft.
Exactly,
He's
he
soft.
isn't. He isn't.
Look at this,
You can
man.
see
Look
the
at this.
RCB jersey right behind him. So,
There you go.
it's,
I think nature has balanced things out for him.
yeah.
I think it's average of 0.5 trophies with the one and zero. So there you go. But no, man. I mean, I'm surprised. I of course, as a United fan, I would have loved to, not have the treble possibly being done made and also the three-peat. I mean, the conditions are as such for a United fan that three-peat was a very prestigious sort of title which we had, and we are not looking at it at all because of the trembles of the treble, which may return to Manchester for all the wrong reasons.
The wrong side of Manchester City, would say, yeah. But let's talk about this though. I mean, it has to be one of the most fascinating stories because I had gone through this stat the other day where I think Arsenal were 247 days ahead in that points table, and it was only 17, I think 18 days for Man City that they were ahead, but it was those last 18 days. But for some reason, Abel, your team just seems to keep making these comebacks. Against Liverpool, for instance, you guys almost bottled it last year, but then for some reason, City just finds a way.
I mean, I have to admit it. Number one, I think it is the habitual thing as well. I think one thing which City lacked in the previous years was not making it a habit in Champions League. But barring that, they had that belief since 2012 they can come out of these holes in adversity. Let's talk about that final day. I mean, I don't have to remind Antariksh about it because he'll know a thing or two about what happened that night. Yeah, I mean, in a sense, that day, City's legacy changed forever. I mean, Champions League is one thing which has been haunting. It's still not there in the hands, but in Premier League, they've done it time and time again. They've been put in positions where things did look very jaded, especially Liverpool winning against Liverpool 2 times 1 points in 2019 and the last year. And now against Arsenal, where things I really thought after the World Cup that there was not really a lot of chance of winning this Premier League because even I felt a lot of players were low on motivation because talk about De Bruyne after having that shocking performance with Belgium and Phil Foden not get a lot of time in the World Cup. So I felt like, okay, maybe this Haaland was doing a phenomenal job, but maybe he was not the answer to winning the Premier League. Maybe the focus on Champions League completely. But then I have to say that winning run, since December, City has not lost a single match in Etihad. I think Etihad really turned up for
Yeah.
City in big moments. And to add to that, Pep has got that legacy. Pep has been there. Pep has seen this team and really nurtured this team. I mean, I will talk about him later on in this live, but then if I have to say something, maybe Pep is doing a legacy what like Johan Cruyff left it for Barcelona in the earlier years. He has developed an academy for them. They developed a footballing culture in Manchester City. And now maybe 10 years down the line, once Pep leaves, they will actually reap the rewards of what Pep's hard work is now. Because after Pep took over in 2016, you got some brilliant guys coming off the academy, Phil Foden, Rico Williams, and now you're going to see many of them as well. There are some Palmer is there up there, so there are a lot of players coming off the academies, just not these main guys. So that's a bright prospect. So now what has happened is you've been there and done it kind of a feeling in Premier League. So that's where I think Premier League has
Yeah.
been easy territory for City in the recent past.
I suppose, I mean, that's what Jose Mourinho branded as football legacy, isn't it? Because I think that's where you look at this Man City team, and it just seems like there are so many players on that bench. Every game, there are players on that bench who deserve to be in a playing 11 in that in any Premier League team. But I mean, I'll come to you, Antriksh, as well. Now, you did speak about the trebles, right? But you have the golden opportunity to ruin the party for Manchester City. I mean, the wrong side of Manchester, as you guys would call it. But now there's the FA Cup coming just one
Yeah.
week from the Champions League final. Obviously, Pep's not going to be playing his main squad, but then that's what I say, right? That's what you say, right? Pep's B squad can be a main squad for one of the managers in Premier
Oh
League.
yeah.
So, how would you rate your chances now against the FA Cup final, the first ever Manchester derby in the FA Cup final?
Yeah. Yeah, pretty surprising stat there. But I mean, as much as I would love to say, we're all over City, but unfortunately, we're not. One thing, but the one thing that I'm not gonna say is that City's gonna this and that, and I mean, this just doesn't allow it, does it? So there you go. But otherwise, man, I'm more than happy to admit that we go into this game as the underdogs, which is fine. Which is fine. We've been that against the blue ones for like almost a decade now. But just waiting for the right moment. I mean, it's about the day. I think Sherry. It's about the day
Yeah,
wherein you just sort of if you turn up, you do well. If you don't, well, then you
absolutely.
are in for a throbbing at the hand of City, even in the finals. I mean, they don't look at it, at the big stage. We'd respect. They'd start doing, that Poznan in that 80th minute, and
Yeah.
they turn their backs even at Wembley. These guys have no shame whatsoever. But yeah, as I said, man, if we turn up, we have the big game players. We have the guys who've done it, who've been there, who've done it, and they can turn any game on its head. But the same goes for City, as you just mentioned. The firepower on their bench, I think, is what enables them to sort of have these mega runs, in the later part of the seasons, wherein teams are sort of getting fatigued out, but they, on the other hand, are just rising to another level.
Yeah, I think we've got a comment by Priyanka as well, who talks about being a hard pill to swallow. But you never know, Priyanka. I mean, you could be the ones to give City a lesson in maybe, who knows, maybe complacency, because it does happen when you start winning trophies that you sometimes believe you're invincible. But I mean, I'll come to you as well, Abel. Now let's look at Arsenal and let's look at Man United as well. Also Chelsea. These are three teams that going into the next season you would be a little worried about, at least because Arteta has done a great job with Arsenal. No one expected them to challenge City for this long and do it so well. And Man United too, you have to give them credit. Eric Ten Hag has really revolutionized this club. I know they haven't won anything more than a Carabao Cup, but things could have been slightly more different if that run towards the end of the season where they kept dropping points didn't come at the worst possible time. But now, how do you reckon this is going to go forward? Because you're also hearing a lot of transfer rumors about a lot of your legacy players leaving as well. There's a chance that Gundogan or Bernardo Silva, players like these, are going to be leaving. You guys also most likely lost out on Jude Bellingham because his dad,
Yeah.
quote unquote, called you guys a plastic club. So, I mean, how do you look at the future now from here on for Man City? Because this is a transition phase, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, one good thing about City is that every year they refresh the squad, and that's one thing I'll have to give. I mean, it's just the money which influences as well. Sometimes money has got its own perks. So that's one thing which City has been doing so well. But I think losing on Bernardo and Gundogan at this point of stage, if you look at it, it is going to be hard. I mean, it's not going to be easy. It's not going to be easy to replace them both. You saw that against Madrid on that pitch, what they can do
Yeah.
on their day, and at what prime of their careers they are in at this point of stage as well. So I mean, it's going to be hard for City to look past them and get new players on board and then fit in. But that's where this season becomes even more important. I mean, if you can win the Champions League with this squad, the next year you can say you can refresh the squad, put in new legs, and look at a new project. I mean, the new project is a Pep's new renewed contract as well, where it's going to be there in the club till 2027. So that's a new project. This is the end of the first project. And this is a peak of the project as well. So your job right now is to win the Champions League and focus on the new project, where you will have to build the players for the next 5 to 6 years, which will include a Phil Foden, which will include maybe what I'm hearing from the rumors is that Rico Williams will be starting a lot more instead of Kyle Walker. So that is what I'm trying to talk about, right? I don't mind City doing that, because if you don't do that, it's going to be a similar case to what happened with Liverpool this season. Because I know Liverpool had a very good
Yeah.
comeback towards the latter end of the season, but you saw majority of the season the aging players was a massive factor for them, where they couldn't really compete with a lot of the teams. So that's one thing I think City's board also does realize, that Pep is a master at doing that. Pep has done that in Barcelona. The time he took over, he said to certain big players that I don't see you in my team. So that's what I'm trying to say, right? Sometimes in football, you have to look beyond some players. And I think Bernardo leaving is kind of inevitable right now. And also Gundogan leaving is
Mm.
inevitable. So you have to look beyond them. I think De Bruyne will stay, but you need a couple of midfielders. City are targeting Florian Wirtz from Bayer Leverkusen. Let's see. I mean, we're way too early to talk about the future transfers. Right now, I think we have to just appreciate what they're doing for the club right now.
Absolutely, yeah. I mean, oh yeah. I mean, there's a question from Azal on the Champions League side of Champions League tie as well between Man City and Real Madrid. And I mean, on that day, it just seemed like, for me at least, from watching the game, it just felt like Real Madrid were really intimidated by the whole scenario. I mean, they did turn up. The Man City fans, the citizens, as they're called, did turn up in huge numbers. And whenever Madrid players were on the ball, they were being whistled. Whenever City players were on the ball, they were being prod on to go ahead and score goals. And no wonder they ended up scoring four, because they were 12 men playing on that pitch. But Andrich, you reckon, but still, Madrid is made from a different metal. What went wrong for them? I mean, they've gone against probably even worse of scenarios. I mean, they've played in Camp Nou for almost three times a season, where the crowd is much more violent and much larger. But what do you think went wrong for them? I mean, it could not just be the crowd, isn't it?
Oh yeah, for sure. I think people are not really accustomed to Etihad turning up in numbers like they did and the
Probably
fashion
not.
that they did. Hence why the stadium factor is being talked like the way it is. But of course, you got to give credits where it's due. And I think they did turn up. I mean, there was no option for them that they shouldn't have, but still they did. So there you go. But no, man. I think you asked the question, what went wrong? I'd say everything from the word go. It was, I think it was 2 years in the making. I think it was the last year's tie as well. It seemed like the exact replica of last year's tie. In fact, City, I would say, were sometimes more on the front side in last year's tie in terms of chance creations, proper chance creation.
Yeah.
We saw a lot of saves from Thibaut Courtois this year as well as last year, and some open misses this year as well as last year as well. So I think that last year's sniff sort of got Don Carlo a bit on the cocky side about the fabric by which Real Madrid have been cut from, and he just thought, he just sort of went with Ollie ball, we call it here in Manchester, wherein he just expected players of class to just deliver in moments. There's
Yeah.
the midfield three, there's the motor, the motors in up front, and then there's the legendary gold Benzema. So he just expected them six to make some magic out there and have the. I didn't really see any sort of concrete plan there. So I think you ask what went wrong. I say everything. And City were just on point. And more than a victory, it was like a statement to the whole world, to the European footballing world, wherein they say that we don't really mind whoever this is. We're gonna step up to the plate now. We're like big time European guns. Let's see.
Yeah, I mean, you're right about that. I mean, they are trying to live up to that tag that's been following them for so long. Even the first final for you guys, I'll take the point here from Carlo Fernandez as well. Joseph Guardiola, he's done. You've been a fan of him when he was at Barcelona. Now you're a fan of him where he's at Man City as well. There's something about this guy, isn't it? He just transforms clubs. He creates monsters, you would say. On the other hand, like Andrich also mentioned, it did seem like that motor, right? The Real Madrid motor. Do you reckon now that couldn't last against that the new face of probably English football that Man City are turning out to be now?
I'll have to say one thing first. I've not seen a better team than Barcelona of 2010-11, where they were a complete team, in terms of fluidity of football. I'm just talking about the kind of style of play. And I, after the best team who I've seen personally in who I've witnessed my short career, whatever I've seen football as in Manchester 2020-2023, where they've been extremely fluid in terms of the kind of way they played football. I'm not bragging because I support them, but then I'm just saying because I've felt at times, where City have really lacked on certain areas, but in terms of fluidity, in terms of defense, also stepping up. This has to be the most two fluid teams I've seen over my time of watching football. And there's a common factor with both these teams, that is Joseph Guardiola, as rightly he mentions. And It is his vision, it's his mentality which has been instilled in this team. It's his style of play as well. I thought uh, at one point of stage in that Madrid game where Manchester City were there and with the plan. Manchester City were ready to take that first leg draw of 1-1 to go into that second leg because they just knew they can conquer Madrid and Etihad. And that was the belief because he was so confident, Joseph Guardiola, the Pep Guardiola as we call him, because he was so confident after that first match where he knew that he can team this team. And even the first leg last year, if City would have had better opportunities, that first leg would have been 5-3 last year. And City did concede a couple of easy goals to Madrid. That's what made Madrid to come back into that game because the first leg you did concede 3 as well. Now, even if you look last year, City did score 4 against them, just that you conceded a lot more. This year, what City did is their defense was so compact. They made sure. So, one thing what Madrid would try to do, and which I was really surprised as well, was trying to get Benzema involved or Vinicius involved with long balls. And when you have Ruben Diaz, when you have John Stones, and for that matter, even Akanji, they are taller players. And they are going to counter you when you're playing long balls. And that's something which did not work for Madrid. And that was one way to beat the press and beat the high line of defense which City kept in the first half. The game was done and dusted in the first half. That was one of the best first halves I've seen Manchester City play in a long, long time. And that really showed statement. The second half, it was just about coming in and doing what was left to be done. And second half, they managed the game pretty well as well. They let Madrid have the ball for a little bit, but then they attacked on faces once again. So that's what I'm trying to say. Manchester City has become a much more mature team under Pep Guardiola. And that's why I give credit to Pep for identifying the players, not giving up on the players. Because you could have felt after last year's loss to Madrid that this team is going to be completely broken come the next season. And it did look like that during the initial part of the season as well. I think what really helped City was a 2 month break of World Cup because after 2 months break of World Cup, it was fresh. A lot of some Haaland was fresh. Some of the players I know they had World Cup disappointment, but that made them feel like okay, we're starting a fresh, a new season. It's not the old season anymore. We can focus and we can actually rejink and go again. I think it was Bernardo Silva or Rodri who gave a statement saying that after that 1-1 draw against Nottingham Forest in February, that's where they really came along. They really felt like, okay, we have to do something different now. And that's where the system also changed. That's where the 3-2-2-3 came into existence by having De Bruyne and Gundogan to operate there. And then that system has been flowing like butter for me.
I mean, that's a very interesting point that you've raised there. I think I want to ask you about this as well, Antriksh, because I mean, we know that Real Madrid likes to press on triggers, right? And they, as Jose Mourinho famously said, "You keep the ball, I'll take the goals." But do you reckon now in that? I mean, in the second leg, when those two shots came off Erling Haaland, you already knew that City were on to something. Those two headers, which was saved miraculously by Thibaut Courtois. To be very frank, when I saw the match, I felt like the match should have ended 7-0 if not for Thibaut Courtois' transfer, because that's how bad it was. It was just him and his agile fingers keeping, Real Madrid in the game for a long time. So you reckon when those two shots came in, Real Madrid still allowed Man City to keep the ball. You think that's where Carlo Ancelotti made his fatal error? Where that's where you had to probably start that press, push City a little back, because you would have to get that City would be disappointed because they got two great chances they were missed. That psychological impact is also there. And ever since those two misses, you didn't see Haaland perform well till the next half because Haaland was missing runs. Kevin De Bruyne and Haaland suddenly stopped communicating with each other. Either they were turning offside, or you were seeing or Militao or anyone else really run over all over Haaland. So that's where you believe Real Madrid just allowed City to settle back into the game again, and until they scored that first goal.
Yeah, I agree with you there. Them missing those two chances sort of would have just maybe made Guardiola a touch nervy there. He would have been like, oh, here we go again. So
Yeah.
then he would have been like, it's like they need a goal and they need it fast. I was of the same opinion as well, because it's just that that statement yet again, Madrid and UEFA Champions League, and you see these, you see sort of nature pointing it towards that every time they play, they go out on the field, and there's something weird happening that just points towards them, and they end up somehow on the winning side. So I think
Yeah.
it was a tale repeating itself again and again. But then you saw that City team. What really defined it was that stat, or that first it was showed in around in the 20th minute, where it can still lie, but then in the 40th minute, wherein it was they were still in double digits for passes for Real Madrid. and I think City had crossed 200, 250. And in terms of possession, I think it was three-fourths and one-fourth. And then, you just know. And you just saw in the way they were recycling possession, it was like it was like almost they were playing against Bournemouth or something. It just didn't feel like Real Madrid. That like you can defend, and I do believe in that sort of philosophy wherein that Mourinho-esque, not Mourinho, but Mourinho-esque, wherein it's not Guardiola's way is not the only way, but I mean Real Madrid just generally aren't like that. They don't like to be. I would use the word harassed the way they were, and they just don't take these sort of things upon themselves. So man, it was just them on point, and I think it was that midfield battle wherein, because as we mentioned, this long ball tactic by Real Madrid, they don't usually do that. They somehow bypass that first line of press wherein they have these midfield maestros, and or whichever team is playing a high line against them, they use the likes of Rodrigo and Vinicius to go in behind, and then there's Benzema, or they cut inside. But that midfield battle, I think it was more of a domino effect wherein Camavinga was being exploited. He was not too good on the ball as well. So then the midfield had to shift towards the left side on the CDM side. Then there was no 1-2 up front. Karim Benzema's hold up play was also doubtful on the day. So it was like a whole set of cards being falling on the wrong places for Real Madrid, and whatever it was a magical day for Manchester City as a club. I would say, not just this. Like again, I would take this win not as a win, but as a statement for years to come. I think this win takes them, I don't know, a decade forward in terms of being a big European club.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I mean, they are in the process, as Abel mentioned before, in the process of building a legacy, because they are still, you would say, a club which is still recent to success. They aren't, I mean, a club like the one that you support, the one that has had storied success for years and years. There's still a club that are building that legacy. But Abel, I mean, just talking about the team that Real Madrid brought out with, right? Even in the first, like we saw how Jack Grealish was running circles around Carvajal, and the only way he was able to stop someone like Jack Grealish was by fouling him and by the referee being blind and not dishing out yellow cards as he should have. But
Yeah.
again, to play Carvajal in the same position and then remove someone like Rudiger who had kept Haaland silent, you reckon that was? I mean, what do you think was the logic behind that? It really stumped me. I couldn't see the reason
Yeah.
for that. For me, I felt if
So
someone
I,
had to
I,
be
I have
changed, it had
one
to be
particular
Carvajal.
reason for that is primarily because what Carvajal can do in attacking transitions and especially moving up forward. You know what Carvajal did against City in the last year's second leg in Madrid. Where he bombed in forward and he can pin in those crosses at the right time. And Carvajal has done that on multiple occasions as well. But his defensive game has dropped drastically over the last 2 to 3 years, and which is quite evident. And when you have someone of Jack Grealish's class in the recent past, what Jack Grealish can do is he can hold the ball and he can also play around with it, especially his passing has improved drastically and his dribbling as well. And what he could do is his technical ability just overpowered Carvajal. Carvajal did not have answers to that. He was cutting in with so much of ease, and Carvajal was left open time and time again. And that's something which you see a prime winger do it. And I was so happy to see Jack Grealish do it, because after all the criticism he was receiving over the last couple of years, he has really stepped up this season. He should be one of the most underrated wingers in Europe. I know the goals and assists won't really tell you it, but his goal contributions, his accurate passing, his defensive acumen, especially on the left wing, because City are not playing with a left wing, left back rather, a full back. So you need
Yeah.
Akanji as well bombing in forward on occasions. So you need him to come back as well. So what Grealish did over the two legs was to also come back, recover the ball, start attack, and primarily what Grealish showed also is what he can be up front. Him linking up with Gundogan was sight to watch. They both in left half spaces was something which Real Madrid really did not expect. And I think me and Antariksh also did discuss about it in another stream, where how the pitch was extremely narrow because of Haaland. Because
Hmm.
Haaland was a major threat in this game, what Madrid had to do was to bring the pitch a lot more narrower, which gave a lot of width for Haaland, which gave a lot of width for Grealish and Akanji, and even for Gundogan to operate on the left hand side or on the right hand side for Bernardo. So that's what happened. Primarily, why you felt like there was a lot more impact coming from the wings. And that's where Haaland's impact has been so much more prominent. Maybe he'll not score a lot of goals, he'll not score any goal in both the leg. But then what you have to also look into is what he can do off the ball, what he can do, his runs, his impact, his aura on the pitch has been so effective this season that teams are planning up against him. And that's what's really made City the team. Because once team starts planning for a particular player, then your focus is on a particular player. That's what you did not have last season, and that's what you have this season. Maybe on in hindsight, you can say they should have played Eden Militao there, because Eden Militao was much more compact
Yeah.
on defensive side of things. But now, in hindsight, ifs and buts can be always spoken about. But then I really understand why Carlo went for that tactic. But one thing I would have to say is Madrid did not have structure at all. Madrid operated without a single structure, because you saw how Benzema dropped to the left hand side and Vinicius was put on the right, put through the middle just to escape Kyle Walker. And this is something which you don't see from Madrid. And also with Rodrigo likes to come in centrally. And there were occasions where he did not have a right winger, because Rodrigo was coming in centrally, Modric was playing centrally, and Vinny was playing centrally. So this is where Real Madrid really missed a trick, and Carlo really did not have a structure. It's not often we criticize Carlo for these mistakes, but then I think they were taken aback after that first half performance, where they had to be desperate for something, and that is something which you don't see from Madrid. Madrid don't panic, but they did panic in the second half.
I mean, that's a very interesting point there that you raised, because there is a stat, right, that Madrid haven't won any, any knockout where they haven't won their first leg in Santiago Bernabeu. So having drawn there,
Yeah, they
I think
won
that
twice, which was
really,
against Manchester, two of the to Manchester United.
yeah, I mean,
Yeah,
yeah, correct. You're right there. So, I just have to take this comment though. So we have the legendary LeBron James joining our stream. Although I have to say, LeBron, you have invested in Liverpool. Are you sure you should be appreciating a player of the rival club at Haaland? I don't know how these things work. You might have a better idea about your, sponsorship. Or, I mean, your partnership with Liverpool. But I like this comment right here that John Walker put. Being a Scouser, it felt good to see Madrid smoked. I mean, I suppose he had to choose a side because obviously Manchester City has also been a thorn in their side. But I can understand why he chose Madrid because Liverpool love their Champions League trophies, don't they? Yeah, Anthony, go
I
ahead.
think it's yeah. I think it's like when you have one of your captains of your fantasy team, a player of the opposition team, and then the team faces your favorite team, and then you don't really know who you're gonna support in the game. So it's a situation like that. But yeah, man, I just think, like, just to sort of summarize all of this, I think it was just again, I'd be repeating myself, but yeah, man, Real Madrid were a shambles that day. Of course, they'll be back. They're Real Madrid. They've already started talks about Jude Bellingham. They've already
Yeah,
had their two guys, on 1 year extensions. They got 80 for Casemiro, and then they've Chumini there. They've the one who's completed football, Camavinga, at the age of, I don't know, 3. And so there you go,
yeah,
man. Like, that is Real Madrid. They've, shambles, but shambles long and gone. They'll be back in no time. And as far as City are concerned, of course, party time. But now, not really. I mean, party time, but not really. Now they've gone this and had one tick in the box, which
yeah,
was
yeah,
sure. But now it's like the FA Cup and Champions League finals. So, like, in a couple of, I think it's in 1 week, if I'm not
yeah.
wrong. Like,
one
It's
week,
it's
exactly
like
yes,
1 week.
yes.
one week apart. So yeah, United have a big job for themselves, for the city of Manchester, for the people of football. And not just it's not like we just take that trophy or the treble. It's also the confidence we could take away if we
Yeah,
do manage to snap up that victory just 1 week before the Istanbul
Yeah,
showdown. So let's see, man.
yeah.
Let's see.
But
hey,
I'll just add to that. If I were to choose between FA Cup and Champions, I'll just give the FA Cup to United for the Champions League. If I have to do a trade off, of course
Of
anybody
course.
would,
Of
anybody would.
course.
But
Of
yeah,
course.
I mean I don't mind that. To be very fair, what's good now for City is that they know they are the champions of Premier League. So against Chelsea, they can go easy. Against Brentford, they can go easy. They can now go rest the players, try the other players out, and then put the players against Manchester United. And 1 week later, the players for the Istanbul showdown, as you rightly mentioned, against Inter Milan. But I have to say, Inter Milan are not going to be an easy path for them. I think we've spoken enough about Manchester City. I think it's about time we speak about Inter Milan, because Inter Milan
Absolutely.
this season has been so underrated in the Champions League. Against Barcelona when they took them off in the San Siro, that's where you really felt like they can manage a game. If they score first in Istanbul, they'd really start believing. They've got the defensive players, they've got De Vrij, they've got Bastoni, they've got Brozovic right there as a screener. These lads can do a job, and especially their attackers as well. They know how to drop back and attack on counters, and they are a set piece kind of a team as well. Get a goal out of nowhere, something like what you saw in Champions League 21 against Chelsea. Maybe get a goal and go play the haram ball, as they say it. Just park everything, everybody in the back, and annoy City, because then City are going to be under pressure. All of a sudden, the memories of 2021 will be all over your head. Oh my God, we were in a similar position. We let it go. Because 2021 City were the favorites heading into that final. It was a very similar
Yeah.
thing. Nobody gave Chelsea a chance, and you saw what happened. Because Chelsea had a horrific season leading into that. Tuchel just took over. Whatever happened there was very similar. I know they did defeat Madrid, but then you have to say the PSG was a harder task at that point of stage. So then they came, and then they absolutely bottled it in the final, because Pep played Gundogan in the middle of the park, and it just not go their way. So these things do happen in a final. And final is not about overthinking; it's just about going and doing a job. But one thing I can agree is City has improved from 2021. They know how to manage a game as well. They know how to attack in phases. The trigger presses is something which they do very well. And even against Madrid, you saw how John Stones and Kyle Walker was getting into zone 14, and they were so comfortable being there. And that's something which you don't see against any team do that against Madrid. And that's one thing you'll have to give credit to Pep for. They're so attacking when they're attacking.
I have to say one thing though. You started by saying you have to talk about Inter Milan, and they just continue talking about Man City. I love the fact that you love your team that much. But yeah, I mean, let's talk about Inter Milan though, because that was supposed to be the more exciting one because of the history involved. But it just, I mean, Inter Milan just steamrolled AC Milan as if they were nothing, as if it was another Serie A game. But I mean, Antrix, where do you think that game ended in that first tie where they scored those two goals, and from there on there was no recovery for AC Milan, regardless of Rafael Leao's return in the second leg.
No, man. To be honest, I really didn't think so. I think I initially thought that the Liao comeback would be something that would rejuvenate AC Milan as a whole. And just looking at him for the past few months, I just thought it was set up for him, the Milan derby, and his name coming up. Then at the weekend he just got that thigh thing. But then again, when he came back, I just thought, because two-goal deficit, especially when this, I know, of course, they play at the same stadium, but they would have figured out a home and away rule or whatever. But especially since that rule has gone away, 2-0 deficits in these European games seems fragile now all of a sudden, because you have
Yeah,
90 minutes to get one goal, and as soon as you get one, the second game begins. Whatever time is left, the second game begins, and it's usually it's defense we attack after that. It's just because of that mindset, at least in these knockout games. So I just believe one goal, at any time before 88, 89 minutes, almost does it into extra time, at least for me. But that was not the case. I think Inter were professional. Inter were what's called a proper cup team, something a
Hmm.
performance which Mourinho replicated to a couple of days later, but also would have been proud of had his Inter team done it as well, which they again did. So there you go. But yeah, man. Although I don't really agree with the intensity of Abel, wherein I still believe, because Inter Milan are an Italian team and Italian football right now, it's like Manchester City, man. It's you take a slow English team, you take a sluggish English team, and then you put them against an Italian. It I just don't see
But
a
I
contest
still
right
think
now.
they've been doing better, isn't it? Because three
Of
Italian
course,
teams are in final of three different European competitions. That in itself is a
Yeah.
big deal.
I mean, of course, they won the cup. They have, I mean, AC Milan defeated Napoli, and who eventually are the champions. So
Yeah.
of Italy. So yeah, of course, they have all of that, da da da. But I j- as I when we were talking the other day, I just there is that spring. I genuinely, it's not like any other year. They could very well lose, and I'd still say the same statement, wherein they have this spring in their step. Jack Grealish comes out with an aura and says, I'm feeling the most confident I've ever felt, playing football. Guardiola doesn't really have that swagger. Guardiola tries to be, a bit quirky with his. He tries to
Yeah,
downplay his
he does.
successes and put the pressure on the opposing team by sort of mentioning them as the greatest ever. But now he's being that boss, that European boss, wherein he's going on to Rio and saying, "I told you, I told you, I told you." So I mean that just these little things do add up for me, in football psychology, and I just think
Hmm.
Madrid City this time are just, yeah, they look like a European team like now. Like they look like one of Europe. So I think, yeah.
I mean, you would have to say that City will have that pressure of being the top dogs, and no matter how much Pep Guardiola tries to shift that to the Inter Milan side, it's just not gonna. I mean, in fact, Inter Milan's, if I'm not wrong, Inter Milan's manager himself tried to do that by saying that whosoever wins the tie between Madrid and Man City will be the unlucky ones. But oh, I mean, let's welcome our predictor Rob Key right here. This dude right here predicts everything accurately. He's Paul the
Oh,
octopus.
He's got this quirky way of predicting. During the T20
Yeah.
World Cup, he did say that he's going to eat curry for breakfast, and India did lose to England, and he was saying he's going to eat
Yes.
fish curry for mentioning Sri Lanka, and he mentioned that if I remember, he said that he's going to eat paella with Madrid, and now he's saying that he's going to eat pasta. So he has got a food reference and
there you go. That's
predicting it.
nice.
So
Yeah.
it's working out for him.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I mean, he's like Paul the octopus back. You remember how he used to predict by eating food from the bowl?
He's
I suppose
Gordon
that's how it works.
Ramsay. That's it.
Gordon Ramsay. Let's keep Rob Key as Rob Key. But yeah, I mean, we have to talk about other Italian side that's made it to the final of European. I mean, another European tournament where it is UEL. I mean, it has to be incredible how three Italian teams are there. But now they are facing Sevilla, and Sevilla are the Real Madrid of Europa League because they haven't lost a Europa final for us for so long as we all can remember. And that's going to be another tough battle. They have come here by beating Manchester United, if I'm not wrong. So they are high on confidence, and you know
I would
what
have
they're going to
preferred
do
had
here.
you mentioned Juventus there.
Juventus.
I had to say it. I had to say it. It was right in front of my eyes, bro. I had to.
Yeah.
But yeah, I
Abel's
mean,
Juventus, bro. Look there.
Yeah, but you know what? You know what? I have to be very honest. I really thought that Manchester United were going to win the Europa League. For
Man,
not
I
kidding.
was
Because after
imagining Jose and United again.
come on, I really thought that. I want to know your thoughts on Felix. What did you make of it? Like, I want to know how did you feel when you lost to Sevilla? Because I personally felt that was a game for you guys to win it. If you would have won that game, nobody was going to stop you.
Oh, of course, man. Maybe Juventus, but I don't know, man. The way we started again, it should have been 3, 4, 5 in the first half. Should have been done and dusted. As soon as I saw Nolito getting in, I had punch in my stomach. I was like, this guy, and that's what happened. To be just smacked over and by no one else than Nolito. That whatever B Tech I'd call him, Julian Alvarez. I don't know. So I don't know, man. I just saw him, and that's how. And it was just written in the stars. It's like they are the Real Madrid. They just are the Real Madrid of Europa League, and they just get it done. Man, I was
Unreal.
so pissed. I was so pissed. They did that to us in the Champions League when Jose was managing us. They
Yeah.
somehow got the better of us there as well, and they did it to us again. They did it to us in the Europa League earlier as well. Man, I don't know. Every time, and I'm just so stubborn. Every time we go into the game against Sevilla, I'm like, Sevilla, of course.
But not
Not
kidding. I
again.
mean, that team was on relegation battle in the La Liga, and
yeah,
you're
I
Yeah,
talking
mean,
about
they're
man.
them
just
winning.
fighting relegation battle. Now they're 10th in the La Liga. But all of a sudden, when they hear, just like how, when Real Madrid players hear the UEFA Champions League anthem, they
Yeah.
get turned on to another level. I think these guys, when they
Yeah.
hear the UEL
But I
anthem,
just can't.
they
I can
go to
understand
another
with Real Madrid, they
level.
have quality of players, but I
Yeah.
can't find an
I
explanation for
think I
their
think
level.
I think I think Sevilla 11 is the only 11 in the whole world who remembers what the Europa anthem is. So there you go. So man,
It's a
yeah.
it's a pro Europa League level, and can you believe they'll finish 10th in the La League and still make it to the Champions League by winning Europa League, like they always
Yeah.
do. Like they make it to Champions League and they get out of the Champions League in the first group, go to Europa League again. They keep doing this time and time again. That's what
I think
annoys
they
me the
do it
most.
on purpose now. Yeah, I think they do it on purpose. Yeah, of
Yeah, I
course.
Yeah,
suppose for them it's much easier to, stay 10th and win the UEL than, I don't know,
West
enter
Ham doing
conference.
something of same sorts as well.
absolutely.
Ah,
Yeah.
well, that
West
is
Ham,
interesting.
that was a very good one.
But how do you guys rate this Roma team now? Because this team, they hadn't entered a European final in so long. Then they won the Conference League, and now they're the verge of winning the UEL as well. I mean, at this point in time, Jose Mourinho is just playing create your own manager in FIFA.
I mean, I didn't really rate Jose post whatever he's had success, and then at Tottenham, at United, and then at Tottenham, I was like, he's just like an old man who was once a very strong guy, and now he's just losing left, right, and center, but still believes he is the strongest arm there is. And now he went to Italy, his I'd call his motherland, and he's just sort of not really reinvented, sort of rekindled his spirit. I'd say, the way he's
Hmm.
crying again, the way he's expressing his anger again. It's not just all salty. It's also got that Mourinho in him back again. And once he won the Conference League, I was like, yeah, he's scamming everyone
Do
to
you feel
believe.
it's also because there's not as much pressure? The owners are just ready to give the club to him. He feels this is his club.
I mean, exactly. I was gonna come to that point wherein I was saying that he was probably trying to scam everyone by winning the Conference League. That he's won a European Cup and this and that. But now there you go. That's Europa League now again. And as you rightly mentioned, there's not much pressure on him. No one expects them to really finish in the Champions League positions because of the whole quadrant of teams that have emerged out of Italy now. And then they
Hmm.
don't really they've won one trophy after many years. They're happy for like at least the next 3-4 years. But then he delivers another European Cup, if possible. I mean, legend already, but that takes him further. Imagine
Yeah.
he wins that, he wins two European Cups, he goes and then he goes to PSG. That's Mourinho
Yeah.
back into football again.
And what could he possibly do with
Absolutely.
PSG? We never know. That's something he's got the squad there
Yeah.
to do it.
Will
So
PSG
it's
allow
early.
him to do anything with PSG? That's a bigger question, I suppose. But Emil, what do you reckon about this team now? This team has got a lot of players who were written out, who were
Yeah,
thought to be yesterday's stars,
Yeah.
and
yeah.
Jose Mourinho has just done a Jose Mourinho on them. As Noah
Mhm.
Van Meekeren says, he's Jose Mourinho, and that's it. But it's just incredible how he
Yeah.
manages to find something in those players and just turn them into something that the whole world had rejected.
Yeah, I agree with you on that. But I was so excited for this game primarily because I just love the way our Bayer Leverkusen are playing as a team, how they've really got it in them to go a long way. Under Xabi Alonso, what they've done is exceptional stuff in Bundesliga from being 18th and 17th to what they are right now, and the kind of football they played as well. So I was really anticipating for this game because I really wanted to see what they can do against a stubborn Roma team, as I'll call them, because Roma team under Jose Mourinho has been extremely stubborn. I mean, for example, Matic, who was with United a couple of seasons ago, and others as well. They've all stepped up and risen their hands for this guy Jose Mourinho, and you have to admit it. He did not play Tammy. He did not play Dybala. He went in with he played Tammy, but he really took them off in initially as well. He did not play Dybala. He played Belotti there, and with Pellegrini there, I have to say, that guy has got something in him. The way in which he defended that the second leg was outstanding. Typical Jose Mourinho stuff. 28% ball possession, zero shots on target, and you saw what happened. Bayer Leverkusen just got frustrated. They tried their best, but there was no opening at all. That they just locked it. You call something called the jail formation, where you absolutely block your strikers and create a jail around them, and that's what it did. That's exactly what it did against Asmon and Diaby and Florian Wirtz. They did not let them not let them dominate at all. And that's why I give credit to their defenders. With the way in which Cristante played, for example, the way in which Mancini also stepped up in that game. I was watching that game. I felt very bored for a lot of period, but then I was like, I'm watching Roma play after. I'm not watching any other team. Roma having a 1-0 lead, this is what you can expect out of them. And they did that so beautifully, and I'm expecting them to do the same in the final as well. Even last year's Conference League final, they got that one goal and they went. They absolutely went into that Jose Mourinho mode where it's just about defending for your lives, and they do it time and time again. I always question the kind of manager he has been. I never liked him much, the kind of style of football he plays. I mean, I feel that's good for cups but not good for leagues. Okay, I mean, it's not going to work on cup leagues anymore, because the live example is Pep Guardiola. Its live example is Xavi, for example, even Arteta for that matter. All the players all the teams who have had good footballing or who keeps the ball in place have had success in leagues. But for Jose Mourinho in cup competition, there's something about him, man. He just knows how to manage games. And also to add to that, there has been not a lot of pressure in Roma. Let's all add to that. Whatever he's
Yeah.
giving for Roma is just adding value to them. Roma does not have a lot of history. Let's all accept. Even Totti just won one Serie A with them. That's all. I mean, now they're seeing success after so long. Maybe after the 2018 season to where they came to Champions League semi-final. Now they've had one Conference League success. I know it's a low-tier European competition, but it's European competition after all. Now Europa League maybe. Then you don't know what possibly. If Jose stays for one more year playing in Champions League, he can possibly. I'm not giving them a Champions League run kind of thing, like they can go and win the Champions League, but you never know. They can possibly pull off a longer run there.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's still going to be very interesting how that Roma team faces off against Sevilla, because I mean, this is an exciting clash. There's one team, as we all know, that has an exciting, I mean, history when it comes to, I mean, Europa League. On the other hand, there are Roma, the fresh challengers who are going to try and oust them of that legacy. But I think we've spoken about almost everything around the football world. Been out live for 45 minutes. So thank you guys so much for joining this late. If you're joining from India, that is, other parts of the world, well, it was easier for you guys, I suppose. But still, thank you so much for putting your time aside and joining us. And thank you, Antriksh and Abel. It's been a great pleasure discussing football with you. And I mean, we all love talking football. So it's just great for us to come out here and discuss it with you guys. But that's it from us for today. And make sure you guys do download the app, that is Boomer 11, on Apple App Store and Google Play Store. I mean, you've been with us for long enough, and you know it's a risk-free fantasy experience, no money whatsoever.
Absolutely. Bye bye, guys. Have a good time.
Bye bye, guys.
Take care.